For early access to more videos like this, plus exclusive content, community discussions, and more, become a patron at patreon.com/BrucePoinsett. What's going on, world? It's Bruce, and this is Oregon Kwanzaa Stories, a 7-part mini-series based on the principles of Kwanzaa. So why this series? Well, I think Kwanzaa gets a bad rap. A lot of people make fun of it as, not being a real holiday in comparison to Christmas, even though, by most studies, there's no way Jesus was actually born on the 25th. But I digress. An educational holiday like Kwanzaa, I think, is actually pretty timely, especially right now during a pandemic and, you know, anti-racism protests at a level we've literally never seen in the US before. And frankly, if you're black and you're bashing Kwanzaa while caping for Christmas, it looks kind of goofy. But again, I digress. So for those unfamiliar with the holiday, Kwanzaa is a 7-day celebration based around a harvest festival, and it's celebrated from December 26th through January 1st. It was invented by Maulana Karenga in 1966. At the time, he was Dr. Ron Karenga. And again, it's based around 7 principles, which we will dive into for each day of the series. But today, we're going to start with Umoja, which means unity. And I encourage you to share your unity stories in the comments. And of course, like, share, subscribe, and all that good YouTube stuff. So, what is unity? Going to the good old Googles, unity, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. So, unity for me is important because I grew up in Lake Oswego, aka Lake No Negro, Oregon. So I've been, dealing with isolation, dealing with, not having my own culture and just identity being affirmed, often being degraded. And so when you find looking for place, looking for acceptance, looking for community is huge it's been huge in my life. And just take you to an example of, not so much the unity, but to put it in perspective, talk about, when I went to 4th grade at Forest Hills Elementary in LO. So again, Lake No Negro, Oregon, I stood out like a sore thumb. I remember my coping mechanism of choice was staring at the ceiling. Kids would make fun of me saying I was counting dots on the ceiling, but you just don't want to deal with the microaggressions that you don't even know are microaggressions at the time. And I didn't talk to anyone for a few days. I think the first thing that really helped me kind of like break through in any way was, I got invited to play basketball during recess, and you know I was good. I could do my thing. And suddenly I had value to other kids. I was suddenly, a kid who'd get picked early in basketball games. And that was my identity. But also that was about it. So now let me fast forward to 8th grade and contrast that with, my first day with the Prospective Gents Club, or the Bridge Builders organization, and specifically the Simbachanga 8th graders. So just a little background. Gents was, again, part of a rites of passage program under, for the, yeah, led by the Bridge Builders and Kevin Fuller. So you can check out this piece in the Harvard Gazette from 2000 talking about the program. It's now defunct since Mr. Fuller, had to move out of state to some other work. But it was a program for young men and then later on young women. And it worked on, we had a bunch of things like weekly college, or not weekly college, but weekly like homework help time at the U of O, as well as, or not U of O, University of Portland, UP. And we got to, homework help, access to basically just, the college scene and building community, building, just, educational credentials, but also we did Black history lessons, movie nights. There were, it was known for the step teams, the cane teams, and a bunch of stuff I frankly did not have enough rhythm for. But again, that's another story. It, even though it went defunct, the legacy still lives on. For example, you have this profile in Street Roots of comedian Nathan Brannon, where, he talks about how the gents, helped shape his life. They had a program, the Black Baccalaureate, which, celebrated Black college graduates throughout, both the state, specifically Portland, but throughout the state. And it was recently brought back by a woman named Noni Kazi, who runs the Black Educational Achievement Movement, because it was just, it's one of those things that was just that important to bring back recently. And then even, you look at a place like Franklin High School, where Chris Frazier, who was, an advisor with the gents, is now the principal. But the point is that their the reach and the legacy still lives on to this day. So, anyways, back to my first day, and I was an eighth grader. It's funny because, I was reading a lot of Black history books at the time, like Cornell West, Lerone Bennett, and my parents decided to put me in this program. And you would think, oh, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to fit in a little bit more, at least, than I was in, LO. And nah, I stood out like a sore thumb there too. In my Costco sweatpants, my dusty black slip-on Skechers. And again, I didn't talk to anyone for, the first few days or programs of it. But it wasn't, ironically, again, until game night and playing basketball that I really broke through, because, that was my goal at the time. That was my focus at the time. So it was only then, breaking through and showing people, you know, nothing else, that I can bust their ass on the basketball court. And, just like fourth grade, that kind of like, broke the ice for me, which is, not to say that I became Mr. Popular or anything like that, but it at least, people knew who I was. So and go from there to, again, the homework help nights at U of P, the Black history lessons, the movie nights, even, practicing drumming for the Kwanzaa gala, where story I'm not going to get into in this, but we were at it's either the Snitzer or the other big performance place downtown, and I literally fell off the stage. But again, we're not going to get into that here. So, you go through, you do that, you have all these activities, and it just, you build community. You, like I said, did I stand out like a sore thumb the entire time? Of course. But people knew me, I was part of the community. And that was something different from LO, but it didn't really crystallize until freshman year of high school, where the gents and their sister organization, the I Loves, or Eminent Ladies of Virtue, they would do this thing where most of the kids were based in Portland public schools. So when PPS would have in-service days, they would basically get everyone together, get in your uniforms. For the guys, those, slacks, your white shirt, your kente cloth tie. For the girls, it was, the blouse, the purple sashes, and get all the PBS kids on the buses, and they're visiting, the few of us who are, outside the district. And I'll never forget, they came to the Lake Oswego building that day, and my classmates, I, I kid you not, they thought we were being invaded by the Nation of Islam. And meanwhile, I had actually forgot that they were even coming that day. So I was in full Bruce form, Costco sweatpants, Skechers, and hair as uncombed as ever because most of my white peers did not know the difference. But nonetheless, I get the announcement over the loudspeaker. I go to the library. I see them all there. I get hugs, handshakes, and I'll tell you something. My peers noticed that, like my fellow LO white classmates, and they treated me differently after that day. And I'm not sure if it was some sense of, oh, Bruce has backup, or just that I feel like even I moved a little bit differently. Like it's a small thing of, having people come in uniform, line up, show you love, form a poem, and then drive back off into, to another school. But I feel like it was just one of those days that for both me and for a lot of my peers, whereas I felt isolated in this bubble in LO, that was a day that really demonstrated there's something more to that. This isn't the be all end all. There's a world outside of this where even if I don't necessarily fit in, there's still a level of acceptance and people who will, show up for me. And that really kind of crystallized why it was all worth it, why programs like this were so important and are so important, because oftentimes we get isolated, especially in a place like Oregon, especially like in towns like LO, where we're just boxed in. But when we see a world where we don't have to necessarily, conform to LO to, you know, to prosper, when we're shown that there's more to this life than that, that can change your whole outlook on life. So that was my unity story. And I just want to again shout out Kevin Fuller and everyone from the Bridge Builders program for the legacy they created. And I will catch you on the next video. Happy Kwanzaa.